excerpt of a creative nonfiction piece I've written this semester. It is titled, appropriately, Still Here. I was still a senior in college, and on that day I had my American Literature 2 class. On that Friday, there was also going to be a prom put on by the Alphabet Center, and I had planned on going. It was a 1980s theme. You see, I had missed my high school prom because I had spinal surgery. I was unable to attend my Friday class, though, due to a pounding migraine I had. It was unlike any other. The pain radiated throughout my head, and I felt sick to my stomach. Needless to say, I missed my second chance at prom. On April 21st, my memory begins to get hazy. I have to rely a lot on what others tell me, namely my family. My parents went out that day to go look at properties, so it was just my younger sister, Ashlyn, and me at home. I still had that migraine. I was sick and nauseous, and I mainly stayed in bed. Ashlyn made me scrambled eggs, but I ended up vomiting those. I do not recall what happened. All I can go off on now is what I was told. At night, my parents came back home. Ashlyn tells me that Mom and Dad, she told them that I was sick and I'd thrown up, so Dad ended up going down the stairs to where my room is. He found me collapsed on the ground. There was blood on the carpet. We do not know why. Did I vomit it? Did it come from my nose? The blood's still on my carpet, but it's dried now. I do not remember what I was doing, but we assume I had gotten up and tried to make it up to the stairs to try and get help. There was vomit and urine on my bed. I had lost control of bodily functions. Is that why I tried to make it upstairs? I will never know. My younger sister called 911 and then gave the phone to my mother. My dad had carried me up the stairs. My sister was tasked with keeping me sitting upright since I was still unconscious. She said with how I kept nearly falling over, I would have most likely broken my arm. Finally, an ambulance came, and I was sent to University of Kentucky Hospital. My mom tells me she had no idea if I would even still be alive by the time we had all arrived in Lexington. At UK Hospital, I was sent to the emergency side, but no one could figure out what had happened. They kept testing my blood. Did I have low potassium or something and have a heart attack? That had happened to me once in the past, and thus would my history of low electrolytes cause UK to test for that. However, my blood work, save for the low sodium, seemed fine. It was not until my mom saw my bruised knees that they decided to send me for a CT scan. That's when they noticed the bleed in my brain. They could not perform surgery immediately, and the first thing the doctors did was install a brain drain to try and relieve some of the mounting pressure. I had angiograms done, and an NG tube was installed to give me nutrition. The brain drain was not doing enough, however. My neurosurgeon, Dr. Frazier, decided to perform a craniotomy to stop the bleeding. My frontal skull piece was entirely removed, and that's how they accessed the aneurysm. In my case, it was an AVF, arteriovenous fistula. While I was forming in the uterus, a vein and artery fused together, and thus blood was trapped and pressure kept building. It eventually burst. Presumably, that's why I had the migraine. My doctor fixed the bleeding. However, the surgery took much longer than normal as I needed 4 transfusions and so much blood had been lost. I was sent to the ICU on the neurology ward, and I have no memory from there either. I was on life support for over 2 weeks. I spent 19 days on a ventilator, and they had to keep draining fluid from my lungs. When I was taken off the ventilator and sent to a different section on the neurology ward, 1 lung collapsed and I developed pneumonia. I was sent back to the ICU. Physical therapists tried to get me to move around. One nurse would play metal music for me to try and get a response. At one point, I did manage to throw him the universal metal sign. Apparently, my brain bleed being in the frontal lobe, I became quite violent. I would rip IVs out and I would remove my own catheters. At one point, I chewed my bottom lip so much I needed a stitch in it. I even yanked on my own mother's hair so hard I drew blood. I have no recollection of this. I was placed in restraints. According to my mother, once I was off the ventilator, I would call her names of other family members, my Ukrainian grandmother's name, my aunt's name, and one of my cat's names. I even called her my uncle's name. On Mother's Day, I was sent to Cardinal Hill in Lexington. This is where I have some very hazy memory. I recall waking up in the ambulance and the crew telling me where they were taking me. Cardinal Hill is a medical hospital for intensive therapy. Their services include physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. I was sent to their brain injury unit, and I had all three forms of therapy. One of the very first things I noticed when I came to is that my hair was all gone. My hair before was quite heavy, and then thus I noticed when its weight was absent. I was distraught. I was frazzled as well. I had so much work to do for college, preparing for finals, revisions to do, you name it. Yet then I heard that all of that time had passed. I was confused. Where had the time gone? Where was my hair? Why was there a tube up my nose? Upon hearing that I had had an aneurysm, I was more confused than anything. Why? I was only 21. I was beyond stubborn. I hated physical therapy. Everything was so difficult for me. Why would I want to try and move around? I could not even stand up on my own. I needed help. I needed assistance going over to the restroom. I needed a walker to move anywhere. I was placed in diapers because at times I could not sense when I needed to use the restroom. I tried to be independent, yet all of this felt as though I had been rendered useless. I had dysphagia, so I could not properly swallow, and that was why I needed a feeding tube. When that tube clogged, the nurse had to use a special wire to clean it out. I was always so afraid of that wire. I could feel the vibrations when it slipped into the tube in my nose. Depending on where the clog was meant how far it had to go. It burned whenever it would go further up my nose. I was always petrified that the wire would poke through that tube and I would feel that. The farther in, the more it scared me. At one point, the tube clogged beyond repair. I was held down by one nurse assistant and my dad as the tube was pulled out and a new one inserted. It was a searing pain. My head was held in place as they feared I might be a biter, but my dad knew me better. He held my hand so I could not hit. Tears had pricked my eyes, and even though it happened quickly, I still recalled the burn of the tube coming up and the sear of a new one going down. They placed so much tape on my nose to keep it in place.